Can't hear him.
Somebody's not muted and they're laughing, which is delightful.
It was me, sorry.
Good morning. Welcome to the June 12th Executive Committee meeting. Let's go ahead and get started with approval of the meeting minutes. Unless there are any questions, I would entertain a motion.
So moved. Desmond.
Thank you, Supervisor Desmond. Looking for a second. I'm happy to second. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any public? I'm sorry. Any public comment on the meeting minutes?
Good morning, Chair. There are no public comments on the meeting minutes.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Supervisor Desmond, a second by Chair Voss. Let's move on to the roll call vote, please. Tessa?
City of San Diego, I believe, is absent. County of San Diego, Supervisor Jim Desmond.
Aye, Desmond.
East County, Mayor John Minto.
Here.
North County Coastal, Vice Chair Catherine Blakespear.
Blakespear, yes.
North County Inland, Chair Steve Voss.
Yes.
And South County, Mayor Serge Dedina.
Yes.
Thank you. That item passes unanimously with those members present.
Thank you. Moving on to item 2, I will ask Tessa now if there are any public comments to be read into the record.
I do not have general non-agenda public comments, Chair.
Thank you, Tessa. Moving on to member comment. If anyone would like to offer any general non-agenda comment, please jump up on the screen and raise your hand. If nothing else, we're going to move directly to item number 4, seeing as how we will hear Hassan's Executive Director report at the board meeting. Item 4 is review of draft board agendas. Victoria, good morning.
Morning. Item number 4A is the draft June 26th Board of Directors meeting agenda. The first item is public comments, communication member comments, followed by Policy Advisory Committee Chair's report. Item number 3 is the Executive Director's report. On your consent calendar, you have item number 4, which is approval of the meeting minutes, followed by item number 5, which is the proposed amendments to the Conflict of Interest Code. Item number 6 is the FY 2020 claims for Transportation Development Act and State Transit Assistance for NCTD. Item number 7 is the annual review of committees and working groups, which is on your agenda next. Item number 8 is the Policy Advisory Committee actions, which we're seeking and approve. Item number 9 is the FY 2021 SANDAG Financial and Compliance Audit Process, followed by item 10, which is the Executive Director's Delegated Actions. Items number 11 is the meetings and events attended on behalf of SANDAG, and item number 12 is the progress report on transportation projects. On your report, you have one report, item number 13, which is the Regional Housing Needs Assessment Appeals hearing, which will be a public hearing. This concludes the agenda for June 26th. Would you like me to go on?
Do we have
to item
any
4?
comments or questions on that agenda? Let's move on.
Thank you. Item number 4B is the July 10th Board of Directors meeting agenda. Item number 1 is your standard public comments, followed by item number 2, which is the Policy Advisory Committee Chair's report. Item number 3 is the Executive Director's report. Under reports, you have item number 4, which is the 2020 ITOP Committee Annual Report, which is for information, followed by item number 5, which is going to be the RENA Assessment Plan public hearing. Item number 6 is for discussion. It's the Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plan. And item number 7 is the SB 743 panel discussion. This concludes the July 10th agenda.
Do we have any comments or questions on that agenda? All right, then I'd be looking for a motion to approve those. And a second.
I'll move approval. This is Blake Spear.
Minto, second.
Thank you very much. I'll call on Tessa for the roll call vote, please.
Thank you. I do not have public comments on this item. City of San Diego is absent. County of San Diego, Supervisor Jim Desmond.
Desmond, aye.
East County, Mayor John Minto.
Minto, aye.
North County Coastal, Vice Chair Catherine Blake Spear.
Blake Spear, aye.
North County Inland, Chair Steve Voss.
Aye.
And South County Mayor Serge Dedina.
Dedina, aye.
Thank you. This item passes unanimously with those members present.
Thank you, Tessa. Moving on to item number 5, which is the annual review of committees and working groups. Tessa, take it away.
I've got to make sure my camera works. Thank you. Good morning,
There you
Chair.
go. Good morning.
Apparently, I don't have enough to do just clerking the meeting. I get to present an item as well. So this item is the annual review of committees and working groups. In accordance with board policy, the executive committee is asked to review all SANDAG committees and working groups and determine whether revisions to their function or membership are needed. In fiscal year 2020, SANDAG supported 23 different committees and working groups. As noted in attachment 1, there were several changes to the staff leads and member appointments that did not impact the responsibilities or the status of the working groups. There were working groups that had changes to the responsibilities or status. Those included the Airport Connectivity Subcommittee. I apologize. This committee was sunset in 2019. The Freight Stakeholders Working Group, the Regional Energy Working Group, and the 2021 Regional Plan Community-Based Organization Working Group. All 3 of these were extended through fiscal year 2021 to coincide with the development of the regional plan. And the 2020 Census Complete Count Working Group was established to involve community leaders throughout the San Diego region in developing both a strategic plan and an implementation plan for allocation of the $1.56 million in County of San Diego funds provided to complete the census in 2020. This concludes my report. I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
And Tessa, do we have any public comment on that?
We do not have public comment on this item.
Thank you. Do we have any member comments or questions? Looking like we don't. We don't need to take any action unless anybody wants to recommend any changes. Am I correct on that, Tessa?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Right.
Chair, this is Mayor Dedina. I just have a quick comment.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Tessa. I know this is an incredibly complicated process, and I wanted to thank you. I know how much time you spend organizing all these meetings. Even now, I think it's gotten more complicated. So I wanted to thank you, but also, at least for me with the Borders Committee, I wanted to thank all the staff and with the Shoreline Preservation Committee who have made this, made these meetings happen. And again, I know it takes an incredible amount of effort. So again, thanks to Tessa, but the entire SANDAG team for the complicated, vast nature of all these meetings and how well they're run. So thank you.
Well said, Mayor. Appreciate that. I know you speak for all of us with that gratitude. So thanks for bringing that up. Thank you, Tessa. We're going to move on to item number 6, legislative status report. Hector, I believe, is going to lead it off.
Hector, you're self-muted.
Hector, it seems like you may still be self-muted. There we go.
Okay, perfect. Sorry for that. I had a hiccup with my computer here. And Mr. Chairman, good morning, and good morning to all the members of the committee. I'm going to start before I see the microphone to my colleagues on briefing you a little bit of what is happening south of the border. And as I had the opportunity to brief you last month, Mexico announced a three-phase program to reopen some of the specific industries. To start with those that were classified as essential, and eventually reclassifying some others as essential for the North American production and supply lines, based also on a criteria by regional conditions. As a result of that, in mid-May, by the end of last month, the state of Baja California agreed to gradually reopen about 200 manufacturing facilities, or well, better known as maquiladoras, and these facilities are operating with thousands of workers. As I mentioned it also last month, this action resulted in a great pressure for the local quarantine and safety measures. Tijuana has currently only 71 active cases, but unfortunately counts over 650 deaths. But by no means this means is the epicenter or the next epicenter of the pandemic. I want to mention, among other of the indicators, recent indicators, they just were announced today, jobs lost in Mexico during the months of April and May accounts a little bit less than 1 million. And an indicator they are measuring is the consumption of gasolines that has decreased about 70%. And very drastic is the reduction on the industrial activity that has shown a decrease of 26%. Right now, Mexico is in discussions or perhaps enabling either temporal or permanent a universal income for people that is suffering through this pandemic. As you know, since last March 21st, the border is operating under restrictions, and the three countries of North America, Canada, United States, and Mexico agreed to keep these restrictions until June 21st. But Canada just announced jointly with the United States that this is going to be extended in July, and this most likely will happen with the border with Mexico. According to data from CBP, there has been a 50% drop in people crossing the border and a 75% drop in pedestrians. The impacts of current circumstances have certainly impacted business locally. For example, CBX has seen a 90% decrease in travelers, and a staple in the border business community, the Baja Duty Free, recently shut down after 30 years of functioning in San Isidro. The last of the three-phase program to reactivate the Mexican economy was initiated on June 1st, prioritizing the opening of the auto industry, the mining, and the construction sectors. However, the entire country is still responding to changing national health conditions. And finally, on another direction, Mexico just announced as they advocated to an early implementation of the new free trade agreement of North America, the USMCA. They announced that they are prepared for the full transition in the coming days on July 1st. And with this, I'm done with my segment of my report.
Do we have any comments or questions for Hector before we move on to Robin or Lori?
Mayor Dedina.
Mayor Dedina, go ahead.
I want to thank Hector for continuing to be engaged. Obviously, with Mexico and what's happening on south of the border, it has not been easy, as Hector knows, to get accurate information and find out what's happening, what's beyond the headlines. So I appreciate that, Hector, and more importantly, your leadership in this era of pandemic, but with all the important things going on. I think what Hector has pointed out with these numbers is that there's some serious economic dislocation happening on the border that has an impact on San Diego, but obviously this isn't going to go away in Mexico. Even before the pandemic hit in January and February, we were hearing about significant budget concerns at the AMLO administration that had an impact already on Tijuana. Even what we're doing with water quality, which is obviously an issue San Diego isn't addressing, but just CBX alone is 90% reduction is significant. So, I think we're gonna have to continue this partnership with Mexico. I'm glad to have seen the County of San Diego step up on its health partnerships with Tijuana, but obviously the spillover from Northern Baja has had an impact on our own hospitals and pandemic rates or COVID rates. So anyway, I just want to encourage Hector to continue the great work and this important work, and hopefully SANDAG can continue its critical role in supporting binational cooperation, but also, economic and infrastructure development in the region, which has such a positive impact on our region in terms of promoting jobs, quality of life, but also reducing air quality and water quality and other environmental impacts. So thanks, Hector, for that update.
Thanks, Mayor
Thank you.
Medina. Anybody else with comments or questions for Hector? I think we'll move on. It looks like Lori's up next. Welcome, Lori. Make sure you get yourself unmuted.
Thank you. Okay, I think I'm unmuted now. All right, so I'm going to start my report off today with some good news. Hassan says that I never deliver bad news, so I'm going to try to stick with my name and live up to it. So as you all know, it has been a regional priority to fund the short-term solution to stabilize the Del Mar Bluffs, and a priority that has been amplified to the state level and now at the national level. 2 weeks ago, we received the wonderful news that SANDAG and NCTD received $11.75 million grant for additional drainage and support for phase 5 of the Del Mar Bluffs stabilization efforts. It's tremendous news for the region, and we really cannot thank you all as city officials and your staff enough for the tremendous support for this project. Moving along into other good news, I'm going to provide a quick update on our work with the Army Corps of Engineers. A couple weeks ago, we submitted a letter of intent to embark on a feasibility study with the Army Corps of Engineers. We're still waiting a decision on that study, but we continue to meet with our LA district team with the Army Corps of Engineers and have received a word that in an incredibly short amount of time, we are now recognized as a formal project in the Army Corps of Engineers system. So the project is now at headquarters at Army Corps in DC, and we will continue to advocate for this study. Moving along, by now you've been hearing a lot from me on something called the Safe Vehicles Rule. I first brought it to you last year when part 1 of the rule was introduced, and then part 2 has now been introduced. Our programming staff has also brought the board a strategy to address the rule's impact on our Regional Transportation Improvement Program, which is our short-term funding program, and major capital projects back in February of this year. So as a refresh, this rule holds national fuel efficiency standards for cars and light-duty trucks at 2020 levels, and it also repeals California's unique waiver for higher fuel efficiency standards. So because of the uncertainty with that rule, all the California MPOs have been basically stuck in a period of uncertainty and in need of updating our air quality determination models and tools. And this ruling has impacted our timelines for developing required state programming documents. So in response to this rule, State Senator Bell has put forward SB 1291, which would suspend the state requirement to update the State Transportation Improvement Program for this year. The bill is consistent with SANDAG's legislative program, and it is in line with the strategy approved by the Board of Directors back in February. As such, we've submitted a letter of support, and we're pleased to see that this bill unanimously passed the Senate Transportation Committee and the Appropriations Committee and is headed towards the Assembly. So back to the conversation about infrastructure. It's still unclear as to where infrastructure will be addressed in the coming months. A stimulus package or a next surface transportation bill. Whatever the case, your staff here at Sandag is working every angle. In terms of the next stimulus package, the House has passed along party lines the HEROES Act, which provides additional assistance for state, local, and tribal governments. The Senate has yet to take up that bill, and if they do, it will likely look a lot different. As the country begins to reopen and the crisis continues to be monitored, I don't think we can expect a future package until at least after the July 4th recess. So moving along to the long-term surface transportation bill, the FAST Act expires at the end of September, so Congress is beginning to introduce language on what the committee priorities may include. House Democrats from the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee released its Invest in America Act in late May, while the Senate Environmental Public Works Committee will likely revisit legislation passed from last year. There is still a high likelihood of us seeing a continuation of the current FAST Act that would buy us at least a year to pass a full bill. And then finally, just wanted to end and give an update with the appropriations process. The House is looking to pass its dozen annual spending bills by the end of July, and that's right before the August recess if that happens. However, given the schedule, it's nearly a month behind last year. There's a high unlikelihood that a significant number, if any, of appropriations bills will get to the president's desk by the end of the federal fiscal year in September. Whatever the case, we are tracking those conversations very closely and will continue to update this group. With that, if there are no questions, I can turn the conversation over to Robin and she can wrap everything up for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Any questions or comments for Lori? All right, we'll move on to Robin. Good morning, Robin.
Good morning. So Lori mentioned how closely we're following all of the stimulus and appropriations conversations in DC. One of the reasons that we're closely following it is because there will be direct implications for the state budget as far as a stimulus package in DC. Earlier this year in January, the governor released his proposed budget for the next year. And at that time, they were projecting a $5 billion or so surplus in the budget. Fast forward about 5 months, he released his May revise a few weeks ago, and now they're projecting a $54 billion deficit. As a result, his latest budget proposal essentially sets up a scheme where he's cutting $14 billion from the upcoming state budget, but there's a trigger that if the feds do come through and provide a stimulus with those $14 billion, he's identified where that money would go. In response, the legislature has come up with their own budget proposal, and they've kind of flipped the script. So instead of planning for the $14 billion in cuts, they're planning to receive the $14 billion, and then they've included triggers that if the stimulus does not come forward from DC by September 1st, certain programs would be cut. So all of this is coming to a head because California is required to pass a state budget by July 1st, and the legislature is required to pass a state budget by June 15th, which is this coming Monday. So the latest reports coming out of Sacramento is that the legislature actually intends to pass their version of the budget to meet the Monday deadline while continuing negotiations with the governor and ultimately come to an agreement before the July 1st. And that's when we'll know what's actually in the budget. From a transportation perspective, I can share that while both the governor and the legislature are projecting about a $1.8 billion reduction in fuel tax revenues through FY25. In the short term, we're continuing to be advised that we shouldn't see any impacts to immediate state transportation funding or project delivery. On the stimulus side of things from Sacramento, we are starting to hear louder rumblings about what the state may be doing as far as economic recovery. There's definitely been a focus lately on what we may be able to do as it relates to CEQA streamlining to help expedite project delivery, i.e. create more jobs and keep jobs available in the economy, as well as some discussion about potentially identifying specific projects that could be supported either through CEQA streamlining or any other sort of funding package that the state ultimately may pass. Good news for us is that one of our assembly members from the San Diego delegation, Assemblymember Tasha Border-Horvath, is serving as an advisor to Speaker of the Assembly, Anthony Rendon, on these efforts. And so we actually met with her just a week ago. Ray Major and Hassan briefed her on all of the information that we are gathering here at the regional level to help inform the decisions that they're making in Sacramento, and we will continue working with her on those efforts. In fact, Despite the COVID constraints, I would say our engagement with Sacramento has nothing but sped up. Just this week, we also met with the new director of the Department of Housing and Community Development, Director Velasquez. Hassan talked to him about the latest on our arena cycle, the things that we're doing with the latest regional early action planning funds, and of course conveyed the request by the board to provide an up to 6-month delay for the housing element updates. We also were pleased to submit a joint letter with our partner agency, SCAG from LA and SACOG in Sacramento, reiterating this request to Sacramento that was provided to both Speaker Rendon and Senate Pro Tem Atkins and Director Velasquez this week. So we are engaging with our offices to see what sort of progress we can make on that front. We also met with the iBank earlier this week and talked to them about Del Mar Bluffs. They will be presenting at the next LoSAN working group meeting about potential opportunities for us to partner with them on funding for the ultimate long-term realignment of the LoSAN corridor. And we'll be meeting with Secretary Kim. He's the Secretary of the California State Transportation Agency next week, again, to talk about the Del Mar Bluffs and other regional project priorities. Finally, I also just did want to mention, this is a bit more technical, but I think it's important. We just want to make sure you're aware. We learned recently about some cost issues related to scoops. So this is a way that we're able to, or local jurisdictions are able to support beach sand replenishment efforts. In order to do that, you're required to get a permit from the state. And recently, for technical reasons, those costs have continued to rise and rise and rise to a point where they become prohibitive for some of our local jurisdictions. So we have engaged the State Water Quality Board. We're pleased to learn that they are aware of this issue and planning to take some steps to help lower those costs. So we are engaging our shoreline preservation group. Mayor Dedina, this was raised at your last meeting, and some of our other partners to participate in some upcoming hearings so we can help get those costs down so we can continue to advance those efforts in our region. We'll definitely keep you updated, and you'll probably be seeing some calls be put out for letters of support to go up to Sacramento to support these efforts. That concludes my report, and I'm also happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you, Robin. Any comments or questions for Robin? Nobody. Thank you all, Robin, Lori, Hector. Appreciate all your hard work. We'll be moving on. Tessa, any further public comment?
Thank you, Chair. There are no public comments on this item.
All righty. And that was an information item only. We had no public comment at the beginning. Next executive committee meeting is Friday, July 10th at 9 a.m. We will be adjourned and hope to see you all in 33 minutes. Thank you all.